Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
Hi, this is Stacy from Shuttler Insurance Services. Come see me on the east side of the square in Sigourney for all your insurance needs.
Bras for a Cause 2025 is Saturday, April 12th at the Carl Craft Civic Center in Hedrick. Dinner is provided by Bubba at 4:30. There's a free will donation, plus a silent auction from 4:30 to 9 p.m. And of course, the live bra auction starts at 6 p.m., modeling by the Hedrick Volunteer Firemen. All proceeds to benefit our local communities. For more information about Bras for a Cause 2025, contact Lori Hornback at 641-777-4252. Get ready because Tyler Richardson and the High Bank Boys are coming to Sigourney on Saturday, April 26th at Enchanted Events, 20595 255th Street, just south of Sigourney. Order your tickets online by going to enchantedeventsvenue.com or find the Enchanted Events Facebook page for the ticket links. There are 3 different ticket options: general admission, VIP, or reserve. Doors open at 7 and the cash bar and band starts at 8. It's Tyler Richardson and the High Bank Boys, Saturday, April 26th at Enchanted Events, just south of Sigourney.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back to the show.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong Nick Bull.
Oh, hello, and welcome to Card Subject to Change. I believe my co-host is frozen, but that's okay. Mr. Never Wrong, if you can hear me, pop out of the room and pop back in. I am the Wizard CZ, and you are tuned in to Card Subject to Change, the podcast by the fans for the fans. Of course, we are powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. Nick, looks like you're alive and well again. How are you, my friend?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're a little choppy, but I can hear you.
I apologize. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show, episode 182, the Card Subject to Change podcast. I'm sure CZ has introduced me. I'm Never Wrong Nick Bull. He is my tag team partner. We're the co-champs of the For Frequency's Sake.
Oh, and he got bumped. Well, Nick just needs to put another quarter in the internet machine. That happens every once in a while out his way. He'll be back. While we wait for him to come back, just a couple bits of business. Want to hype out our good friend Ricky Lee and the Sandra Lee Memorial Car Show coming up on May 3rd, where we are part of a title belt out there. Our logo right there. The wrestlers who are there, the Headbangers, Lash LaRue and Buff Bagwell, get to choose their favorite car of the show. And the winner gets this beautiful belt that we see on screen. And I'm going to promote at the beginning of the show instead of the end because I want to focus as much as we can on our guest, who I'm excited to have on. We'll talk about it in just a moment. This Wednesday, we are not doing the kick out. We have Hollywood from the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, the original Glow Girl, coming in to talk about her book. Super excited about that. But let's get down to business here. We have a guest in the studio, and I've been watching this guy for a little while. I don't know as much as I'd like to know about him, but I've seen him in Honor Among Wrestling. He is a former Midwest Championship Wrestling champion out of Illinois. Let's welcome in Nick Nolan, Nasty Nick Nolan. Nick, how are you today?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. I was tired earlier because I told you off air. This is our third show of the weekend. We've been kind of burning the candle at both ends, but I got a good nap in, so I feel good. I'm excited to talk to you.
That's good. I'm excited to be here. And I see you guys are powered by Lopez. Like once a month, I'm powered by Lopez also. Very good pizza in the Quad Cities.
Very much so. I don't get down there as often as I'd like to anymore. I've just time gets away from me, and I'd love to be down there because I got a bunch of friends down there. It just doesn't seem to happen as often as I'd like, but they are great pizza. If you're in the Quad Cities, I highly recommend them.
There he is.
Hello, Never Wrong.
Through time and space, I made it back. Thank you guys for holding up for me, and welcome to the Card Subject to Change podcast. You have already met our guest this week via the Wizard CZ. I hope it doesn't get too nasty here, though. But I do want to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm an open book, man. Whatever you guys want to know.
I'm pumped. I love having first-time guests because I ask our guests, all our first-time guests, the same question every time. Why pro wrestling? What was it for you that made you keep coming back? And I'm assuming you're a wrestler, that you're a fan of wrestling. So at some point you became a fan. Why pro wrestling? What was it for you?
So there's one specific moment that I guess you can say hooked me. And that was, I was about, I want to say 13 years old. I grew up in New York. I grew up in Brooklyn. So my dad says to me one day, hey, do you want to go to SmackDown at Madison Square Garden? And I said, no, I don't want to go to SmackDown at Madison Square Garden. But then, like 15 minutes pass and I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I can spend some time with my dad. I guess I'll go. So I wind up going, and the main event at that show, actually the very first match I saw in person was John Cena versus Orlando Jordan, and that was on Velocity before SmackDown.
Okay.
And the main event of that show, I don't remember I do know who was facing heel, but I don't know what wrestler played what role. It was Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, and Mr. America. They were the faces versus Team Angle and the Big Show. Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin, and the Big Show. And I don't remember anything about the match, but what I do remember is after the match, everyone left, and Mr. America was still in the ring. And I didn't know at the time Mr. America was Hulk Hogan. Spoiler alert. So I'm like, who is this guy? Right? I mean, I kind of knew who Hulk Hogan was, but I didn't really watch wrestling too closely back then.
Right.
So I'm like, who is this guy? And then he starts doing the whole Hulk Hogan routine, the posing and the pointing and, the ear thing to each side and all that. And I remember looking over to my right. We were kind of in the nosebleeds. And I remember looking over to my right, and I literally see the building shaking back and forth. Ooh. It wasn't crazy, but it was definitely noticeable. And then I look back in the ring, and then I look back to my right, and the building's shaking. Everyone's losing their minds. And this was Hulk Hogan's last appearance, because I think he quit that day. But this is the infamous where he lifted up the hood and told everyone to shut up. And he exposed that Mr. America was Hulk Hogan. This was after the show. But that moment, thinking about it now, I have chills, I have goosebumps. That's the moment that I knew that I wanted to be a professional wrestler, because the electricity in that building that night, I've only felt one other time at another event with The Rock and John Cena. But that's when I knew I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And pretty much every decision I made since that day, good and bad, have been for wrestling.
Now, before we continue, I want to make the understanding. Was that your first interaction with wrestling, or did you watch wrestling before going to that SmackDown show?
So my very first memory of professional wrestling, I think WWE just uploaded this not too long ago, because I was like, when was this? Okay. My very first memory, I had to be 4 years old. I walk into my dad's room, and on the TV is The Undertaker and Yokozuna, and the ropes were red, white, and blue.
Okay.
So I think that was their casket match at the Great American Bash or something like that. And The Undertaker scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
This was scary Undertaker back then. So I saw that. I was like, no, I'm not doing this. So I didn't watch because of The Undertaker. So, I mean, growing up, going to school, in elementary school, people would talk about The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. But really, other than that, my first real... I haven't even thought about this until right now. My first real talking to other kids about wrestling is when Owen Hart died. And kids in my school were like, oh, did you see Owen Hart? He died yesterday or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I watched. I didn't watch. But that's pretty much the other, like one of the first memories I have was people talking about that.
Okay.
And I remember being at a bus stop. Wow, this is crazy. And this kid, Alberto Gonzalez, like we were talking about, this is crazy how like you just opened this Pandora's box in my head to talk about all this stuff. But yeah, we were talking about that, waiting for the B16 on Fort Hamilton Parkway. This is insane how this is just coming back to me right now. But after that, I never really watched wrestling. I remember right before I went to that show at Madison Square Garden, I may have watched an episode of SmackDown here or there. I didn't have cable where I lived, and SmackDown was my show. One of the other, I don't know if this was before or after, but it was an early memory I had. It was John Cena versus The Undertaker, like the American Badass Undertaker. And not too long after that, I think I went to SmackDown, and then the rest is history.
That is a fantastic way to get yourself introduced. I mean, Madison Square Garden alone being the mecca, you gave me chills, that whole story.
That episode of SmackDown is a very like notorious one for things that happen because SmackDown's edited, so you don't see everything that happens live. So during that episode, this was when Vince McMahon was feuding with Mr. America and Zach Efron, Zach Gowen. And this is when Vince walked down to the ring and he was acting, he had a cane or something like that, and he was doing his strut, and he threw his cane into the crowd by accident and it smacked the kid. And then that was edited from the show. And then all I remember is seeing like a bunch of like security come grab that kid and bring him to the back, or her. I don't remember. But that was never seen on TV. And that's an infamous moment from that show that if you were there, you know. But yeah, you know, that time of wrestling, that was 2003. I watched here and there. And then the next event I went to was No Mercy 2004.
Okay.
Where it was like JBL versus Undertaker in a last ride match, I think it was.
Okay.
And JBL got chokeslammed through the limo. I think I could be confused with like a SummerSlam. I don't know. All I remember is like Heidenreich coming out and ruining the match. But yeah, and then after that, that's when I really started getting into it, like 2005 with Triple H, Evolution, Edge, Randy Orton, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels. But I said Batista. JBL was my guy. JBL and Triple H and Edge were my guys, and Eddie Guerrero.
Of course.
So yeah, and then speaking of like moments that made me want to be a wrestler, there was another moment I remember watching, and I remember exactly what I was eating while I was watching this. It was a SmackDown where it was Eddie Guerrero versus JBL in a steel cage match, and Eddie Guerrero went to the top of the cage, and he's standing on top of the cage. And I'm sitting at my computer desk eating General Tso's chicken with pork fried rice. And I remember watching Eddie Guerrero jump off the cage, hit JBL. And I kid you not, ref counted to 3. I called my dad immediately and said, I want to be a professional wrestler. And he's like, okay, sure. Like, you'll grow out of it. And here I am 20 years later, not growing out of it. So, you know, if it wasn't for people like Eddie Guerrero, say what you want about him now, Hulk Hogan, and Edge are the guys that really like captivated me into getting me into wrestling.
Oh, those are some good names for sure. Let me ask you this, because we know Black and Brave graduate. You grew up in New York. What drew you to Black and Brave? What brought you to the Midwest?
So at first, the first training facility that I went to was Lance Storms up in Canada.
Okay.
After that, I went to New York, finished school, worked at Tommy Dreamer for a little bit. He actually gave me my first match, which was House of Hardcore 2. And I was in a battle royal. And then when was that? 2012 or 13, probably 2013, something like that. 2015, I wound up moving to California to train with Brian Kendrick.
Okay.
So I lived in California from 2015. I stopped wrestling because California's expensive and training was in the middle of the day whenever he wasn't wrestling for WWE. So it was like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and trying to find a job that allowed me to support myself and give me the flexibility to go train with him was impossible.
Right.
So I stopped. I eventually wanted to get back into it. I planned, okay, in April, I'm going to go back. April comes, the world shut down, we're in COVID. So I'm just in limbo. I'm like, what am I going to do? My life is over. My wrestling career is over. So I eventually, get my way back in with Brian, start working with him a little bit. He, takes me under his wing. I go to his house. We watch wrestling. We talk wrestling. We student mentor kind of thing. And he really likes talking. That guy, to this day, I say has the greatest brain for professional wrestling. So underappreciated, underutilized. But when I was talking to him, I'm like, hey, I want to get back into wrestling. Are you training? Are you coaching? And he's like, no, I'm not really coaching anymore. I was like, damn, okay, well, I guess that's that. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I look at where I can go, and I was considering Booker T's because I had spoken with him, and he was like, yeah, come down here. And then, something was like, hey, you know what? It was either Booker T or Seth Rollins. So this was, I want to say, April 2022. I want to say the middle of April 2022. A little bit before my birthday. I remember that. So I emailed Black and Brave, and I was like, hey, I have experience with this guy. If you can squeeze me in any future class, because I know they were like booked out for at least a couple of years.
Sure.
And if they can just maybe accommodate me and squeeze me in anytime within the next year or so, that's kind of what I was banking on. So Monday night, I send that email. Tuesday morning, I get a response saying, hey, someone from England just dropped out. If you want to take his spot, class starts in like 9 days. Just pay for everything now. And once I saw that, I knew I was going to go, but it was a lot to digest for, the next week and a half. My life is being uprooted.
Absolutely.
So I go into work that day. Hey, I'm done. I'm going to Iowa to do this. I'll be back, whatever. They were cool with it. So like a week later, I'm in Davenport. We do the day zero, which is to weed out people who just can't do it. So I remember